everybody, so I don't know if you saw this, but in a recent interview with the Telegraph, Shawn Layden, president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment America, was quoted with saying that the upcoming Spider-Man had a strong chance of helping the PS4 reach 100 million units sold. He went on further to state that Sony's strategy to broaden their consumer appeal in future is to place a strong focus on creating social type games for the European market, whereas in the US market, titles such as Spider-Man would be more important. I think that the very first thing that most people may take away from these statements is that there seems to be a very strong vote of confidence in Spider-Man, particularly when one takes in consideration that the PS4 only recently surpassed the 60 million units sold mark. However, how great Spider-Man will be when it is eventually released isn't really the topic I wanted to focus in this video, although I am hoping that the game will be damn amazing. Rather, I wanted to look at the dichotomy that was suggested with these statements. Possibly in the simplest terms, there is a single player versus multiplayer narrative within the gaming community, where most gamers tend to place more focus on one of these two areas, or so it seems to be suggested here. Phil Spencer, Microsoft's head of Xbox, was recently quoted with saying in an interview earlier this year that the future of single-player games was somewhat doubtful, as more and more gamers seem to sink in more hours into multiplayer service-style games such as Halo, Call of Duty, Overwatch, and Counter-Strike Global Offensive, amongst others, in turn leaving very little time to play other games such as single-player games. Now, both of these statements have led me to pondering two major questions. Firstly, are single-player games really dying? Then secondly, is it accurate to divide the gaming community into single-player focused gamers and multiplayer focused gamers? So let's start with the first question. Are single-player games really dying? I have previously suggested that in modern gaming, arguably the most popular aspect amongst the public is that of multiplayer experiences at the moment. It is hard to argue against this point when one looks at the fact that the top 5 titles that were generating the most players per hour on Steam in 2016 were all titles with strong multiplayer components. The top 5 downloaded games on the PlayStation Store in 2016 all had strong multiplayer components in them, and that Ars Technica recently released a study that indicated a list of the most popular games on Xbox One, which was mostly made up of titles with a strong multiplayer component. It is important to note, however, that the intense popularity of multiplayer titles does not really equate to the death of single-player titles. It's also vital to note that in the list of the best-selling video games this year, 3 of the titles are single-player only games: Horizon Zero Dawn, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. And one, despite having a multiplayer mode, is a strongly single-player focused game: Mass Effect Andromeda. Please do try and tell me that you bought Mass Effect Andromeda to play the multiplayer mode. Although after the shocking experience of the single player, I am not surprised if most people did gravitate to that area. The fact that such titles are still able to make it on the bestseller list is a testament to the fact that the style of gameplay is still rather popular amongst most gamers. I think for Spencer to say that single-player gaming is dying is largely incorrect if the evidence provided is to be believed. I think it's perhaps more accurate to suggest that single-player titles on a whole generate less income than multiplayer titles, as most multiplayer titles are littered with microtransactions nowadays. From social media, it does seem that a lot of gamers have perceived Spencer's statements as an attempt to cover up the fact that the Xbox One doesn't really have a standout single-player title at the moment, whereas both the PS4 and Nintendo Switch do. Whether or not this is the case will always be unclear, but I will say that Microsoft has been advertising for a position for a new title that was inspired by Horizon Zero Dawn. It is unknown whether this prospective title will be a wholly single-player game at this moment. This, however, brings us to our second question. Is it possible to divide the gaming community into single-player focused gamers and multiplayer focused gamers? To be honest with you, I think multiplayer and single-player experiences work in tandem with one another. Phil Spencer is perhaps right in suggesting that gamers are spending hours upon hours in certain multiplayer titles, but I do believe that only describes half of the situation. I have often found in my own experience that while I'll play a title such as Battlefield or Call of Duty throughout the year, I'll also be playing several other titles to break up that gameplay experience. In this year alone, to name a few titles, I've completed Horizon Zero Dawn, Ratchet & Clank, Knack, The Order 1886, Far Cry Primal, Tales from the Borderlands, and Lego Batman 3, all of which are primarily single-player titles. From talking to the people around me, I do really think that this is an accurate representation of most gamers' playing habits. However, I could be wrong. People could be mostly focusing on multiplayer games only. I don't know the aims of Sony's marketing strategy and do not have the data to understand playing habits in certain regions. I just think that it is rather interesting that they have seemingly decided to divide different geographical regions according to the single-player, multiplayer dichotomy. I think it's quite clear that currently both single-player and multiplayer titles have a place within the gaming industry, as most gamers pine for both of the experiences at different times. This may change in future, but that is something that still remains to be seen. I do want to know though, are you more of a single player or multiplayer gamer? Perhaps you enjoy both game modes. Please share in the comments down below. And if you like this video, please remember to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.